Bass shakers. What are they? How do they work? How do you install them? And most importantly, are they actually worth it? Those are the questions that I'm going to be discussing today in this video, so stick around. Bass shakers are a topic that I see brought up on the forums all the time, and a lot of it comes down to people asking the question, are these things really worth it, or are they just kind of like a gimmick or, just kind of a joke? And so I thought it would be useful to share a little bit of information about my experience with bass shakers and answer some of the questions that I see asked very often. So the first question is, what are bass shakers? Bass shakers basically are a device that you attach to your chair or your couch, and it vibrates when there are low bass sounds in a movie or music. And the way it works is they are powered by an amplifier, and the amplifier is connected to your AVR through the subwoofer output. And so when there are low frequency sounds, they get transmitted to the amp, and the amp shakes the bass shaker. And that's basically it from a high level. There's a little more to it. They don't just vibrate. It varies. So it's difficult to explain. You kind of have to experience it for yourself. But they vibrate differently based on the type of frequency that is coming from the movie or the music. So it's not just a simple vibration. It's more complicated than that. But that's a good thing because it makes for a more immersive experience when you're watching a movie and, something, there's like a loud impact or a thud. You feel that versus something maybe that's just kind of like that's vibrating. And so it will vary depending on what is on screen. Now, the second question is, how do you install them? So every chair and every couch is different. So this element does require some customization. So I'll walk you through what I did to install mine, and hopefully that'll give you some idea of how you can tackle your own project. So my chairs on the bottom have L brackets that kind of frame in the frame of the chair. And I installed a board that set right inside those L brackets, and I screwed them in with screws, and I used blue Loctite so that they wouldn't shake loose. And then once I had the boards in place, then I just mounted the bass shakers to the top of the plate, also using screws with blue Loctite. And then I wired them up. It was pretty straightforward. I mean, like I say, it did require some thought. I did kind of have to think out, or I did have to think through how to do this. But in the end, it was a pretty simple solution. And so the next question is, which bass shakers did I choose? So I used a set from Dayton Audio. I bought them on Amazon. I'll throw the link up in the description box, so if you want, you can check them out. And it was pretty simple because it was a package deal, and everything came in the package. There's the amplifier and 4 bass shakers. So I have 3 chairs. Each one has its own bass shaker, and then I installed 1 bass shaker in the couch. And that was it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The package came with a really nice wiring diagram that showed exactly which leads to use off of the amplifier and which wire went to which bass shaker, and then from there on to the next bass shaker, and so on and so forth. And it was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now, I am curious to hear what other people's experiences have been with bass shakers. So if you have bass shakers, I would love to hear which ones you got and how you like them. And also, how easy was it for you to install them? Because like I say, for me, it was pretty straightforward, but I've seen other videos and posts from people that maybe it wasn't quite as straightforward, not quite as simple to install them. So what has been your experience with that? And then once you had them installed, how has it been? Were you happy with them? Were you impressed? Were you overwhelmed? Were you underwhelmed? Kind of what was your general impression? And then for those of you who don't have them, why not? Why? What is holding you back? Or are you interested in them? Not interested in them? Are you curious? Not curious? I'm just interested to hear like what people's impressions are of them, whether you have them or not, whether you have good impressions, bad impressions. Like I say, I just see them mentioned on the forums all the time, and I think part of it is that you really have to just experience them for yourselves. Like I can sit here and describe my experience with them, but until you've actually sat in a chair and watched a movie with a bass shaker in it, it's kind of hard to explain. So yeah, tell me what you think. I'm curious to hear. Once I got them installed and put in, I fired them up, and they produced a lot more impact and a lot more movement than I was expecting. And I think part of it is because the set that I bought are kind of on the cheaper end. They're not the cheapest, but they're definitely on the lower end of what you can spend on bass shakers. There are brands out there that produce bass shakers that can run you into the thousands. For mine, I paid a little bit less than $400. I think I paid about $380 for the whole set. Amplifier and 4 bass shakers, everything. I think I paid about $380. So I think I was kind of expecting to maybe be a little underwhelmed, because I'm like, well, I'm buying on the lower end, so maybe they're not going to do that much, or maybe it'll be like, oh, are they actually doing anything? I don't know. So when I first plugged them in, and for the first few days, about a week or so, I was like, wow, this is a lot. And after a while, I was like, you know what? Actually, I think this is little too much. And so fortunately they have a volume dial that you can adjust very easily. And so I dialed them back, and I feel like I got them dialed in really well. And now they're at a level that I really enjoy. It's like the perfect amount. It's not too much. It's not too little. It's Goldilocks, right in the middle. And so that's been really cool, because now any movie we throw on or any music, they're there and they just really add to the experience. And it's really, really cool. So some people question whether they actually need bass shakers if they have subwoofers that already produce that rumble. For instance, for people who have wood floors and the subwoofer is able to transfer that vibrational energy through the floor, up through their chair and into their body. For those people, they're already getting like a tactile experience, a physical impact to what's happening on screen, because it's coming from the subwoofer. Now, in my case, I'm in a basement, and so I have concrete floors, and so I get almost no transference of energy from the subwoofer to the chair. I get a little bit, but it's very minor. And so when I put in my bass shakers, I saw a dramatic increase in energy, in vibrational energy, in those low rumble scenes in movies. And so, you might have to take that into account when considering how much bang for your buck you're going to get by adding bass shakers if you already have that tactile experience from your existing subwoofers. Now, I will say there is one added benefit to the bass shakers that you don't get from subs, and that is late at night when everybody's trying to sleep and you really want to crank the bass. These things are really nice because the energy is so localized. You can crank the bass and you feel it in your chair, but it's not shaking the whole house because you can turn your subwoofers down. So in other words, you can dial your subwoofers back so you're not shaking your whole house, but you can still have that full impact of the bass shakers at the same time. So you feel it, but nobody else in the house does. They don't feel it. They don't hear it. You're the only one that experiences it. So that's actually an added benefit of the bass shakers that you get above and beyond just having really good subs. So I have brought on a second opinion to share her thoughts on the bass shakers.
So I have to say, the first time that you demoed the bass shakers for me, I was kind of like, oh man, this is pretty intense. Like, There was a lot of vibration, and it was almost distracting from the rest of the sound experience. It kind of took away from it, and I didn't want to be rude or anything because it seemed like something that wasn't going to just be an easy send back or anything like that. So I didn't say anything like that, but I was kind of like, oh man, are we really going to have this be part of every movie that we watch that has big bass? And we even had a friend that came over, and the first time she felt it, she kind of reacts in a big way to a lot of things, but she kind of like jumped out of her chair, and we had to like stop the movie and turn it off and everything. And I was a little bit nervous about how it was going to be going forward, but I don't know what you did. You must have kind of dialed in the settings, which I didn't realize was how it worked. But now I have to say it just really it works really well. It feels a lot more like just kind of a full body bass, kind of like you get when somebody, kind of the feeling that I think people are going for when they crank the bass up really high, like on their car stereo or whatever, where it just kind of where you can kind of feel it in your whole body, only without the annoyingly loud bass sounds. So it really, I think, is just kind of a nice little enhancement to the theater experience. And it doesn't just, like I said, it doesn't distract from anything else. You almost don't even notice it, and you don't feel that it's coming from the chair either. It just feels like kind of a more intense bass feeling. And we have since had that same friend who had the big reaction to it, come back, and she didn't even notice it. So,
no.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good. So you give it a thumbs up?
I totally give it a thumbs up. I would recommend. Okay. I would recommend it.
Okay, cool. So there you have it. My opinion, as well as another person's opinion. And so we both are in agreement that they're definitely worth it, and they're a big bonus in our theater room. So now the question is, for you, are you interested? Does that make you more interested, less interested? I'm curious to hear. Thanks for watching.